Now, if you're a Panthers fan, and unless you've been living under a rock, I'm sure you've already heard about the news that came down today. General manager, or should I say former general manager, Marty Hurney has been relieved of his duties by owner David Tepper. Yes, that is correct. Marty Hurney has been fired by the Panthers organization. He is no longer the GM after his second stint in that position for the team. Now, if you look at Panthers fan base on Twitter and the internet, you'll see something that sounds a little bit like this. Now, I'm not going to be as harsh on the guy because you never want to see somebody get fired during the middle of a pandemic. You know what I'm saying? It's hard out here. People are losing jobs left and right. But we're going to talk about some of the good stuff that he actually did for the team. And, of course, we got to talk about the bad, which is why he probably lost his job and why so many Panthers fans are against him. We're going to talk about what this means for the team going forward and what the vision of the team could be going forward. And stick around towards the end because I got 3 possible candidates that could fill in for his position and be a part of this Panthers organization as we go forward in the David Tepper era. But before we do that, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button because my name's Aaron Duncan and I'm here with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk, dropping Panthers content on a weekly basis. I drop film breakdowns, I drop analysis like this, I drop live streams, post-game, and on Wednesdays when I talk about the league and the Panthers. So if you don't want to miss any of that stuff, make sure you guys are subscribed and hit the bell icon. The bell icon is the only way to make sure you get a notification every time I drop a video. So if you don't hit the bell icon, you might miss something. You don't want to do that, man. You don't want to do that. So go ahead and do that and give the video a thumbs up. It really helps your boy out and it doesn't cost a thing. I know a lot of the fan base has only come around the 2014, 2015 season when we had some success. But a lot of you guys may not realize that Marty Hurney has been a part of the Panthers organization for 20 years. 20 years. That's a long time. And that's pretty good job security, especially when the Panthers organization has only existed for 26. So 20 out of those 26 years, Marty Hurney has been a part of this team. Marty Hurney is more Carolina Panther than anybody you could probably think of. Like, his thumbprints are on this team all over the place. So this is crazy to think about him actually leaving this job. Now, this is his second stint. We know he was fired in 2012 by Jerry Richardson and replaced by Dave Gettleman. And we all know how that era went when we lost some of our favorite players. But he returned back in 2017 during that transition to find he was supposed to be a temporary Band-Aid until we found a long-term solution. Lo and behold, Jerry Richardson had the workplace misconduct situation. He ended up leaving, selling the team. Marty Hurney actually stuck around with Ron Rivera in his final year and Matt Rhule as he came in as a new coach and with the new owner, David Tepper. So this dude, Marty Hurney, has been Teflon for a while and he's withstood the stand of time. Marty Hurney has had some down times, but you can't knock him for the players that he's picked up. He's drafted multiple Hall of Famers. I'm talking about Julius Peppers. I'm talking about Luke Kuechly. I'm talking about probably Cam Newton. He's picked up some great guys, but there's other guys that he's picked up. The list goes on, guys. I got it right in front of me. Chris Gamble, Jordan Gross, Thomas Davis, D'Angelo Williams, Ryan Khalil, Josh Norman. Guys like that, man. And not to mention the new guys like Brian Burns and Derek Brown and Jeremy Chin, some of the new guys that are here too. So Marty Hurney is responsible for bringing some of your favorite Panthers players and putting them in that blue and black. So we got to pay homage to him on that. And the fans may feel some type of way about Marty Hurney, but the players, they love this guy. If you see the outpouring on social media, you'll see all the gratitude he got is just as high as the gratitude that was given to Ron Rivera when Ron Rivera got fired. Now, this reason could be because he always seemed to overpay the players and was a little bit too loyal to them, which is pretty much his undoing. You know, he was the pioneer that brought in 2 running backs like Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams and having that 2-headed monster at running back, which pretty much set the precedence that you kind of need 2 running backs because they both get injured. But he also was the guy that proved the point to the rest of the league that, hey, you don't pay those guys. You may need 2 running backs, but you don't pay any of those guys long term because it'll put you in salary cap hell. And that was kind of the reason why he got fired the first time. Also giving contracts to guys like Charles Johnson, who might not have deserved all that money. But as of recent, trading up to get Will Greer, who pretty much we know is not going to work out. Also taking a 2nd-round pick on Greg Little and thinking that he was first-round talent, even though Greg Little hasn't really had a chance to prove himself as of yet. But so far, it doesn't look like he's going to be that type of guy. Some other things is like letting James Bradbury walk in free agency and not having the cap space to be able to sign him long term because we obviously need help at corner. And Bradbury has been balling out with the Giants under Dave Gettleman when he got signed there. And the big Cardinal sin that was put on him this past offseason was getting rid of Cam Newton. I will almost never forgive Marty Hurney for letting Cam Newton walk and cutting him and putting him in free agency. I don't 100% blame Marty Hurney for that, though, because David Tepper was the one that chose to keep him around, even though he brought in a new head coach after getting rid of Ron Rivera, knowing their philosophies probably didn't mesh together great. And when I say that, that means because Marty Hurney is a little bit more of a traditional, old school, gut feeling, evaluating players type of guy, kind of like Ron Rivera was. But we know David Tepper has preached numbers, statistics, analytics, all that fancy stuff that he wants to implement, and he probably wants somebody with the more innovative brain. And what bothers me though is I think that David Tepper knew this from Jump Street. He just wanted to keep Marty Hurney around to kind of take the blow and the fallback for when we got rid of Cam Newton. He knew that if Marty Hurney was the face, that Matt Rhule or him wouldn't take as much of the heat for cutting Cam Newton, because if you put the guy Marty Hurney that drafted Cam Newton, to let him cut Cam Newton, it has a little bit of a different feel when you bring in some new people that just get rid of the old fan favorite Cam Newton. So in some ways, I think Marty Hurney was a sacrificial lamb because everybody thought that this deal was long overdue. It probably should have happened last year, but it is what it is. Fans should definitely have some questions about David Tepper at this point, because what the heck does this dude want? He was on the record bragging about Marty Hurney last year, saying that he's one of the best evaluators of talent that he's ever seen in the NFL. And he was very complimentary of the guy, man. He was really gassing him up, talking him up, making us think that Marty Hurney might actually be here for the long term, especially after he survived the transition of Ron Rivera to Matt Rhule. But like I said, then he turns around and puts in a press conference that him and Marty Hurney really didn't mesh together on their philosophies, and they had two different ways of approaching the future of this team when it came to data or just traditional methods of evaluating football players. And the writing was already on the wall before that. So for David Tepper to kind of say something like that today, it was weak to me. I mean, it's not my millions and billions of dollars being spent, but at the same time, I do put my money and my investment into this team. So I do want some clarity and some sense of vision from my ownership. You know what I'm saying? Just because you have the most money in the league don't mean you know how to run a football team. And I'm still questioning David Tepper just as much as I'm questioning some of the other parts in this franchise. It's just you can fire a head coach or a GM. You just can't fire your owner. So we can grope and complain all we want to about Tepper, but he is what he is. So the question is, what does this mean for the team going forward? David Tepper says he wants to begin this start for this search very early, because last year he fired Ron Rivera with a couple games left too to try to get a head start on finding the head coach that he wanted. And he's been on the record saying that he wants uniformity in the organization with the coaches. So he wants somebody that Rhule's going to like, and Matt Rhule is going to have a say-so and input on who the next general manager would be. David Tepper said this, not me, David Tepper. So David Tepper being on the record saying that has some fans thinking, okay, hey, does this mean that Matt Rhule will actually probably be the head coach and the de facto GM of this team? Kind of like some other college coaches that's been around in the league has done before, like Chip Kelly or Harbaugh or stuff like that. David Tepper says no, but there's no reason that we should trust anything he says, because he says one thing and does the other. So don't be surprised if Matt Rhule does have a huge say-so on who gets chosen, but also a huge say-so on what players get picked up in his system, because Matt Rhule's gotten paid a lot of money. So David Tepper is going to want to give Matt Rhule every chance to get the guys that he wants to, no matter who is hired as a general manager. Another thing that we need to think about, though, with this change of general manager, does this explain why we haven't had any contract talks with Taylor Moton or Curtis Samuel? And what does this mean for both of them? You know, do we sign one of the two? Do we sign none of them and just let both of them walk? Do we try to bring both of them back and see if we can bargain with them? You know, the smart thing to do would have been to start negotiating with Taylor Moton before this season started. You know, before he shut down Cam Jordan or shut down Joey Bosa, you know, because now the price just went up for Taylor Moton. But he had a chance to sign him and Curtis Samuel years before to get them on a cheaper contract. So it really makes me scratch your head and mainly makes you grind your gears when it comes to Marty Hurney at that position. But so the $1 million question is, who will be the next guy to fill this position? That's the $1 million question. Could be a couple $1 million question, because we know David Tepper has the biggest checkbook in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So you have a lot more power when you have that money. You see what happened when you lured Matt Rhule away from that New York Giants job, when you really opened up the bank account, gave him a long-term deal and a lot of money for a guy that really hadn't proven himself in the big leagues. But money talks and BS walks. What was really messed up and unfortunate is the Panthers had their opportunity a couple years ago to hire a guy internally that was next up and the next great general manager. And that was Brandon Beane. Brandon Beane got hired for the Buffalo Bills. He was assistant to David Gettleman. He ended up taking Sean McDermott with him to hire him as the head coach. And obviously, 3 to 4 years later, the Buffalo Bills are a Super Bowl contender. So think about having that guy under our belt. Had we just gotten rid of Dave Gettleman and promoted Brandon Beane, we could be in a whole different scenario right now. But that's not on David Tepper. That's more so a Jerry Richardson move, and we know we're looking at him with the side eye anyway after the way he left us. But the first candidate I'll say, because like I said, we got to look in-house first, I would say, is Pat Stewart. Pat Stewart is the director of players and personnel for this team. Pat Stewart spent some time with the Eagles and the Patriots and just joined this team last year. He's a fresh face, but he's been climbing the ladder pretty fast, you know what I'm saying? So he has that experience being on the championship team with the Eagles and with the Patriots. So he knows how to build teams the right way. He's just waiting for the opportunity, it seems like. So maybe we look internally, and if we do look internally, look for somebody that's going to get along with Matt Rhule, and look for Matt Rhule to really, really carry the weight of the player evaluation and picking the guys that he wants. So like I said, if you bring in a guy that's already inside, look for Matt Rhule to be the de facto GM, which they keep denying. The next potential candidate, I think, is Joe Hortiz. Joe Hortiz is with the Baltimore Ravens right now. He's been with that organization for 20 years. And we know how good the Baltimore Ravens have been. They really don't have any down years. They're one of the perennial programs in the NFL that is always competitive, always good, always gets the most out of their players. He's been responsible for drafting guys like Patrick Queen, as of recently, J.K. Dobbins in the second round, as of recently, of course, and then C.J. Mosley, the linebacker, is there. Darius Smith, who's not with the team anymore, but he ended up getting a big-time contract with the Packers, and you see how valuable he turned out to be. So he has the pedigree working with a championship organization. Now, will it be attractive for him to come to a team like us that's in rebuild mode? Who knows? He doesn't really have experience with being in a team that has to rebuild, like I said, because the Ravens have always been good. You just kind of evaluate talent and churn them out and keep going and keep competing for division titles and Super Bowl titles. And of course, with the Rooney Rule and stuff like that, there are going to be minorities that are going to have to be evaluated anyway. So possibly Louis Riddick could come in here. It's going to be very competitive to bring his services in because there's been a ton of other teams that's wanted to interview him. But like I said, David Tepper has that checkbook. He has that checkbook, and he has something that looks to be attractive when it comes to money because you're going to have all the financial aspects that you need to probably be successful going forward. And last but not least, who I think is probably going to be the most likely candidate for the position is Kevin Colbert, who is the current GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I've told you guys on this show about nepotism and all that because it's all about relationships. David Tepper, once a minority owner of the Steelers. He has experience. He knows Kevin Colbert. And let me tell you why it makes sense on both sides. Kevin Colbert has been signing one-year deals with the Steelers for the past 2 seasons. He's been a mainstay for this team for a while now. And you know how competitive, just like the Ravens are, the Steelers are year in, year out, how much they love consistency, how much they love to build those championship organizations. They're all about continuity, and they love to build that culture. And Kevin Colbert, being that he's probably going to be on the way out because he's been signing these one-year deals, it only makes sense for him to come join David Tepper. He's going to have the money and the bank behind him to be able to make that job attractive. Not to mention Kevin Colbert actually has a house in Hilton Head, South Carolina. So with that new facility in South Carolina being built for the Panthers, he won't be too far from home, maybe 2 or 3 hours. So it seems very attractive. Not to mention it's the South, baby. Everybody loves that warm weather down here. It's a lot better than Pittsburgh. That's why I think Kevin Colbert will probably be the next general manager of this team. But we will see, because if David Tepper's telling the truth and he really wants that guy to get along with Matt Rhule and being one step as far as the future and how to evaluate players and put a team together, you never know what's going to happen. David Tepper can like the guy all he wants, but if he's not getting along with Matt Rhule, who knows what can happen there. They may not get the job. But you guys let me know how you feel about Marty Hurney being fired. I'm sure you guys are ecstatic. Let me know who you want to see as the possible next general manager. Do you think any of the guys I named could possibly be the next one? Let me know down below in the comments. But without further ado, I'm Aaron Duncan signing off for the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. I'll see you next time. Peace.